Most people watching this video will still be struggling financially 5 years from now, not because they are lazy, not because they are unlucky, but because they never learned the skills that actually create money in the new world. Right now, a silent shift is happening. AI is replacing jobs, old careers are collapsing, and a new class of millionaires is being built quietly, skill by skill. In this video, I will reveal the exact next millionaire skills that don't teach, jobs don't protect, and the system hopes you never understand, skills that can turn one person, one laptop, and one decision into financial freedom. If you stay until the end, your mindset about money, work, and your future will never be the same. Right now, someone is becoming a millionaire not because they are smarter than you, not because they are richer than you, but because they learned skills the system never taught you. The next generation of millionaires will not wear suits. They will not wait for promotions. They will not depend on governments, degrees, or bosses. They will depend on skills. And if you don't learn these skills in the next 24 to 36 months, you won't just fall behind, you will become financially irrelevant. Today, I will show you the exact skills that will create the next millionaires of 2026 and beyond. And understand this clearly, the future does not announce itself with noise. It moves quietly while most people are distracted, scrolling, complaining, waiting for motivation that never comes, while a small group is training their minds, stacking skills, and positioning themselves ahead of the curve. Because money has always flowed to those who see change early and act before it becomes obvious, and right now the biggest mistake people are making is thinking they have time, thinking 2026 is far away, thinking they will start next year, when in reality the gap between those who act now and those who delay is becoming impossible to close, because wealth in the modern world compounds faster than ever, not just in money but in knowledge, networks, and systems. And once someone builds momentum with the right skills, they don't just move forward, they accelerate, while everyone else feels like the world is moving faster without them. And this is where mindset separates spectators from builders. Because future millionaires think in terms of leverage. They ask how one action can create 10 results, how one skill can open multiple income doors, how one idea can be turned into a system. And they stop asking for permission from society, from family, from fear. Because permission is the invisible cage that keeps people average. And when you look closely at those winning today, you'll notice something uncomfortable. They're not perfect. They're not fearless. They are not waiting to feel ready. They are simply moving while uncertain, learning while earning, adjusting while building. And this is why adaptability has become more valuable than intelligence. Because the rules keep changing. Platforms rise and fall, tools evolve, economies shift, and those who cling to old identities get left behind, while those who stay fluid survive and thrive. And this is especially true in the age of AI, where execution speed matters more than credentials, where one person with the right prompts, systems, and strategy can outperform entire teams. And this creates a new kind of inequality, not between rich and poor, but between those who can leverage technology and those who are consumed by it. Because there are two types of users today, the entertained and the empowered. And the difference is brutal. One scrolls and escapes reality. The other studies patterns, tests ideas, builds assets, and slowly disconnects income from time. And this is where hidden money systems come into play, because the real game is not about working harder. It's about positioning yourself closer to value creation, closer to distribution, closer to decision making. Because the closer you are to value, the more you earn, and this is why salespeople, marketers, creators, and builders will always outperform workers who only execute tasks. And when you combine this with global reach, digital platforms, and AI, you start to see why geography is losing power and skills are gaining it, why someone in a small room can compete with companies, why personal brands are becoming more valuable than resumes, and why the future rewards those who can think independently, communicate clearly, and move decisively. And let's be honest, none of this is taught in school, because schools were designed for a stable industrial world, not a fast-changing digital one, so waiting for the system to prepare you is a losing strategy. Preparation is now a personal responsibility, and the ones who accept this early gain an unfair advantage, because while others argue about whether change is fair, they are already building within it, stacking income streams, testing business models, learning how money flows online, understanding psychology, attention, and incentives, and this understanding creates confidence, not fake motivation, but grounded confidence that comes from competence, from knowing that even if one thing fails, you can rebuild, because you have the skills. And this is the core difference between fragile people and anti-fragile people. Fragile people break when systems change. Anti-fragile people benefit from chaos. They see uncertainty as opportunity. They know downturns create discounts, that disruption creates openings, and that the biggest wealth transfers happen when most people are scared, confused, or asleep. And right now we are entering one of those periods where old financial promises are weakening, inflation is silently taxing savings, job security is becoming an illusion, and digital ownership is becoming more powerful than physical ownership. And in this environment, the smartest move is not to panic or complain, but to skill up aggressively, to build optionality, to create multiple paths forward. Because freedom is not having money, freedom is having choices, and choices come from skills, from networks, from assets that work even when you are not. And the people who will win in the next decade are those who stop asking, what job should I get? And start asking, what problem can I solve at scale? Because problems are expensive, and solutions are valuable. And when you position yourself as a solution, money follows naturally, without chasing, without begging, without burnout. And this shift in thinking is uncomfortable at first because it removes excuses, it forces accountability, it demands action, but it also unlocks a level of control over your future that most people never experience. And once you feel that control, you never want to go back because you realize that you are not powerless. You are just untrained, and training is available, information is everywhere, tools are accessible, and the only remaining barrier is the decision to take yourself seriously, to stop treating your potential like a hobby, to stop underestimating what consistent effort over months can do. Because the next millionaires are not making one big move, they are making small, smart moves daily, learning, testing, refining, compounding. And while it may not look dramatic at first, 1 year later the difference is undeniable, and that is how quiet success works, invisible before it becomes inevitable. And as this momentum builds, something subtle but powerful happens inside you. Your standards change. You stop tolerating distractions that once felt normal. You become selective with your time, your energy, your circle, because you realize that every hour you spend unfocused is an hour invested in someone else's dream. And this awareness is uncomfortable but necessary, because growth always begins with discomfort. And future millionaires are not addicted to comfort. They are addicted to progress. They understand that discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. And this is why they design their days intentionally, not perfectly, but deliberately, stacking small wins that compound into confidence. Because confidence is not something you wait for, it is something you earn through repeated proof to yourself that you can execute. And execution is the rarest skill of all, far rarer than ideas, because ideas are everywhere, but follow through is scarce. And in a world where most people consume more than they create, creators gain leverage almost automatically, not because they are superior, but because they are visible, and visibility creates opportunity. Opportunity creates connections. Connections create deals, and deals create wealth. And this chain reaction is why the ability to communicate clearly, to tell stories, to explain value simply, has become a financial superpower, because the person who can explain wins, whether they are selling a product, an idea, a vision, or themselves. And when you combine communication with consistency, something remarkable happens. People begin to trust you, and trust is the currency that never crashes, because markets fluctuate, platforms change, technologies evolve, but trust compounds, and those who build it patiently find that opportunities begin to chase them instead of the other way around. And this is where many people misunderstand success. They think it arrives suddenly overnight, but in reality it arrives quietly, after long periods of unseen effort, after showing up when no one is watching, after improving when no one is clapping. And this is why patience paired with urgency is such a powerful combination. Patience to build correctly, urgency to act now, because waiting for perfect conditions is another form of fear disguised as logic, and fear is expensive. It costs people years of progress, and the future does not reward those who waited to feel safe. It rewards those who learn to move with calculated risk, to place small bets, to test ideas cheaply, to gather feedback quickly, and to iterate relentlessly, because iteration beats hesitation every time. And in the age we are entering, adaptability is not a soft skill, it is a survival skill. The ability to unlearn outdated beliefs and relearn new models is what keeps people relevant, because relevance is income and irrelevance is poverty, regardless of how hard someone works. And this is why clinging to old identities can be dangerous, because the world does not care who you were, it only pays for what you can do now, and what you can do next. And those who understand this stop tying their self-worth to titles, degrees, or past achievements. They become students again, curious, flexible, humble enough to learn from anyone young or old, because wisdom today flows in all directions, not just from the top down. And this openness creates an edge, because ego is heavy, and heavy things move slowly, while those who travel light adapt faster, pivot faster, and recover faster when something fails, and failure itself loses its sting when you see it correctly, not as a verdict on your ability, but as data, as feedback, as tuition paid to reality. And the people who win long-term are not those who avoid failure, but those who fail intelligently, cheaply, and quickly, extracting lessons instead of excuses. And this mindset transforms pressure into fuel, uncertainty into curiosity, and challenges into training, because every obstacle forces skill development, and skills are permanent assets. They cannot be taken away by markets, layoffs, or algorithms. They live inside you, and this internal wealth is what creates external wealth over time. Because once you know how to build value, money becomes a byproduct, not the goal. And ironically, when you stop chasing money directly and focus on solving real problems, serving real needs, and improving real outcomes, money arrives more consistently. Because value creation is the only sustainable source of income. Everything else is speculation, and as the next decade unfolds, this truth will become even more obvious, because automation will handle repetition, AI will handle optimization, and humans will be paid for judgment, creativity, leadership, and decision-making. And these are skills that must be trained intentionally, not passively absorbed, which means those who invest in their mental models, their thinking frameworks, their ability to see second and third order consequences will stand far above the rest, because thinking clearly in a complex world is rare, and rarity is valuable. And this is why future millionaires read differently, listen differently, and consume information with purpose. They are not addicted to noise, they are committed to signal, they ask better questions, they seek understanding instead of validation. And they measure progress internally before it shows externally, knowing that lag time is part of the process, and during this lag time, doubt often appears, whispering that nothing is working, that others are ahead. That effort is wasted, but this is the exact moment where most people quit, not because they failed, but because they were about to succeed and didn't know it yet, and those who push through this invisible barrier unlock a new level of momentum, where effort starts producing disproportionate results, where connections compound, where skills intersect, and where opportunities begin stacking. And from the outside it looks like luck, but from the inside it feels like alignment, because preparation finally met timing, and timing always favors those who are ready, and readiness is built in advance, quietly, daily, intentionally, without applause. And this is why the next generation of wealth will belong to those who respect the process, who understand that consistency beats intensity, that direction matters more than speed, and that the most powerful moves are often the least dramatic ones repeated over time. And as this understanding deepens, fear of the future begins to fade, replaced by a calm confidence, not because the world is predictable, but because you are capable, adaptable, and equipped. And this internal shift changes how you walk, how you speak, how you decide, because you no longer see yourself as a victim of circumstances, but as a participant in creation, someone who can respond intelligently to change instead of reacting emotionally to it. And this difference, though invisible at first, is what separates those who struggle endlessly from those who steadily rise, because the future does not belong to the loudest, the luckiest, or the most privileged. It belongs to the most prepared, the most adaptable, and the most committed to becoming valuable in a world that is constantly rewriting the rules. And as this evolution continues, you begin to notice how differently you interpret the world around you. Where others see chaos, you start seeing patterns. Where others feel overwhelmed, you feel curious. Because once you understand how value is created, distributed, and multiplied, the noise loses its power over you. And this is when you stop reacting emotionally to headlines, market swings, or social pressure, and instead respond strategically, asking how each change can be used rather than feared. Because fear is the most expensive emotion in the economy. It causes people to sell too early, quit too soon, and stay small too long, while those who train emotional control gain a massive advantage. Not because they don't feel fear, but because they don't obey it, and emotional discipline becomes especially important in a hyper-connected world where comparison is constant and misleading. Because you only see other people's highlights, never their doubts, delays, or private struggles, and future millionaires understand this illusion. They don't race against people. They race against their former selves, measuring progress in skills acquired, problems solved, and systems built, knowing that sustainable growth is personal, not competitive. And this internal scoreboard keeps them grounded when results are slow and humble when results accelerate. And humility is critical, because the moment someone believes they have arrived, they stop learning, and the moment learning stops, decline begins, especially in a world where change is relentless. And this is why the most dangerous phrase in the future economy is, "This is how it's always been done." Because the future punishes rigidity and rewards flexibility, and flexibility starts with curiosity. The willingness to question assumptions, test new tools, explore new models, and rethink old goals. Because many people are chasing goals that no longer make sense, goals inherited from a different era, a different economy, a different reality, and future millionaires regularly update their definitions of success, focusing less on external symbols and more on internal freedom, time control, location independence, and meaningful impact. Because impact creates fulfillment, and fulfillment sustains effort, and sustained effort is what builds mastery, and mastery is what creates pricing power. The ability to charge more not because you work harder, but because you deliver results that others cannot, and this pricing power is what allows individuals to escape the trap of overwork. Because without it, people are forced to trade more hours for marginal gains, slowly burning out while mistaking exhaustion for progress. And this is why strategic thinking matters more than raw effort. Because effort without direction is just motion, not movement, and movement requires clarity. The clarity to know which skills matter now, which platforms are growing, which problems are increasing, and which behaviors are becoming obsolete. And clarity comes from deliberate observation, not constant consumption, from stepping back occasionally to see the bigger picture. Because the future favors those who can zoom out while others are trapped zooming in, reacting to daily fluctuations instead of positioning for long-term trends. And one of the strongest trends shaping the next generation of wealth is decentralization, the shift of power from institutions to individuals, from centralized gatekeepers to open platforms, where anyone with skill and consistency can compete globally. And this shift is uncomfortable for systems built on control, but empowering for individuals willing to take responsibility, because decentralization removes excuses. There is no one left to blame, no authority to wait for approval, no single path to follow, and this freedom can feel overwhelming at first. But it is also where opportunity lives, because opportunity always hides where responsibility is high and certainty is low, and those who embrace this reality stop looking for guarantees and start building resilience, because resilience outlasts any single strategy, and resilience is built by diversification of skills, income streams, and thinking styles, by not putting identity, income, or confidence into one fragile basket. And as this mindset develops, setbacks lose their power to define you, a failed project becomes a lesson, a missed opportunity becomes feedback, a slow month becomes a signal to adjust, not a reason to quit. And this emotional maturity is rare, But it is also what separates professionals from amateurs. Because amateurs need motivation to act, while professionals act because it is who they are becoming. And identity-driven action is far more consistent than emotion-driven action. And this is why future millionaires focus deeply on identity, not just outcomes. They ask who they must become to earn at a higher level, to lead better, to think clearer, to execute stronger, knowing that income is a reflection of identity over time, not a lottery prize, and when identity shifts, habits follow. And when habits follow, results eventually catch up. Even if there is a delay, and this delay is where most people give up, because modern culture has trained impatience, trained the expectation of instant feedback, instant validation, instant reward, while real wealth still follows old laws: effort before reward, value before income, patience before scale, and those who can operate under delayed gratification gain an unfair advantage, because they are willing to do today what others refuse to do, knowing that tomorrow belongs to those who prepared yesterday. And this preparation is rarely glamorous. It looks like learning when tired, building when uncertain, publishing when imperfect, and improving quietly without external applause. But this is exactly why it works, because competition is low where effort is high and recognition is delayed. And as the years pass, these quiet efforts stack into visible results, not suddenly, but steadily, until one day the gap becomes obvious, and people begin asking how it happened, not realizing they were watching the process all along and dismissing it because it didn't look dramatic enough. And this misunderstanding of how success actually works keeps many people trapped in cycles of starting and stopping, chasing new ideas instead of committing to execution, mistaking novelty for progress. While future millionaires understand that boredom is often a sign of mastery forming, that repetition is not stagnation but refinement, and that depth beats breadth when it comes to building something meaningful. And this depth allows them to see opportunities others miss. Because when you stay long enough in one space, patterns reveal themselves, inefficiencies become visible, and small improvements create large advantages. And this is how leverage is built, not through shortcuts, but through understanding, and understanding compounds quietly until it becomes power. And power, when guided by discipline and purpose, becomes freedom, not the reckless kind, but the calm, controlled freedom of knowing you can navigate change, create value, and adapt no matter what the future brings. And this confidence does not shout, it doesn't need to, it moves silently, making decisions from a place of clarity rather than fear. And this is the mindset that continues to rise while the world keeps shifting. Because while trends come and go, while tools evolve and platforms change, the core principles remain: learn fast, adapt faster, create value, build leverage, and stay committed to growth even when the path feels unclear. Because clarity is rarely given up front, it is earned through movement, and those who keep moving intelligently eventually find themselves ahead, not by accident, but by alignment with how the future actually works. The truth is simple and uncomfortable: the future will not reward intention, it will reward preparation. And right now you are standing at a silent crossroads where doing nothing is still a decision, just the most expensive one. The next millionaires will not be chosen by luck, background, or permission. They will be built by discipline, skills, and the courage to act before certainty arrives. This era belongs to those who learn faster than the world changes, who use technology instead of being used by it, and who turn uncertainty into advantage while others freeze. From this moment forward, stop waiting to be saved, stop asking for the old rules to return, and start becoming valuable in the new game that is already being played. Because 5 years from now, the world will look very different, and when that moment arrives, you will either thank yourself for starting today, or wonder why you didn't.